What is going on, everybody? Voidlego here, back with a brand new episode of Higurashi When They Cry. Last time we're on, we saved the Minister of Construction's son from the kidnappers, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I want to go back to the tips, and I want to go back to this. Let's go check out the blue box this time. I mean, the red box. What was it? I cannot remember. Let's go. It's very useful. Yeah, I picked the blue one last time. Let's pick the red one. Let's see what happens. Have you thought about it? In the end, you chose this cover, didn't you? As soon as you chose, the other box disappeared. So you can give up on the contents of that one, okay? Let's duel. Now open up the box you chose. Inside the box, there was a piece of caramel. Right now, you're thinking that's it. That's right, the contents of the red box and the blue box were a piece of caramel and a stick of chewing gum. The game knew I went back. We're a piece of caramel and a stick of chewing gum. You might have thought you made the wrong choice before, but now seeing them together like this, you can't really say that either choice was the wrong one. Well, I guess everybody has their personal preferences. If you prefer caramel to gum, for example, you're definitely thinking of choosing to open the box again based on that preference. The clear choices you wanted were basically this: the selfish desire to open up both boxes and compare the contents, then pick the one most suited to you. But you see, reality is the same as this game. If you pick one, the one you didn't choose disappears, so there's no way you could check the result. If at that time, if you had done this, or perhaps if you'd done that, then it wouldn't be hard to imagine that you could be happier, or perhaps less happy than you are right now. In the end, you only have the pleasure of approving of or being disappointed by the choice that you did make. But that's fine. After all, didn't you enjoy the thrill of making the choice? If, like now, you knew the contents of both boxes, then the choice between the red box or the blue box would just be a waste of time. Because instead of a boring game about boxes, you could be looking at the quickly changing evening summer sky, listening for the distant sound of thunder, and pondering if it's going to rain or not. That would be much more fun. It's a lot more fun to wonder about the unpredictability of reality, wonder about the future, instead of knowing what will happen with both boxes. Such a unique, so interesting, a very kind person. Patients admitted to the hospital can only accept calls at fixed times. That's why she wouldn't be receiving a call from today. Yesterday, she had teased him that he got one way easily, so he might have struggled with the idea of calling her sooner. That was much easier to imagine. Other than that, he might just be too busy to call. 'Cause he's just that type of person. Yuki, whispering that, smiled to herself. The announcement that visiting hours were over played over the hospital intercom along with some music. She exchanged pleasantries with the family of a patient that was staying in the same room as her. Probably eager for his mother to be discharged, their small child was wearing a beaming smile. The child's mother was pregnant in the bed next to mine with what may be their new brother or sister. They were probably ready to burst with the expectations, dreams, and worries of having a new sibling. The joys of growing family. Bathing in those warm feelings, I stroked my own belly, which had grown quite large. I had talked with him about how many children we wanted to have. We talked about how if we had three, it would certainly be lively. However, there was the inescapable worry of whether I would be able to handle giving birth that many times.
でもそんなことを不安に思って出産を嫌う母なんていないですものね。
Yuki, smiling as she said that to herself, gently stroked her stomach. The Metropolitan Public Safety Division. The place where that man's sense of justice had led him. That person was actually a very gentle, very fragile person. He didn't talk much about the specifics, but I didn't think he was suited for the assignment he was on right now. But as long as he said he was going to try his best, I would watch over him warmly.
あなたのお父さんはね、とっても頑張り屋さんなのよ。こちょこちょこちょこちょ。
Yuki seemed to be enjoying herself as she talked to her own belly. At that moment, Yuki suddenly became concerned about something and looked out the window. There used to be this time, long ago. She remembered that when she was little, around this time in the countryside when her grandmother lived, the Higurashi would fill the air with their chorus. This was the middle of Tokyo. Unlike in the countryside, you couldn't hear the song of the Higurashi, but for some reason, at that moment, Yuki felt that she wanted to hear that song. Interesting. Alright, now let's continue on. Where are we going to go from here after saving the minister's grandson? I have no idea, but either way, I'm very excited. That was my first time losing consciousness. You often hear of regaining consciousness on top of a bed, but this was my first time actually experiencing it.
もしもし大丈夫ですか
Realizing that I was awake, a young doctor called out to me. I didn't intend to respond, but it seemed my body language had told him I was conscious. My head was wrapped in bandages. The scratches all over my body had also been treated. My sense of pain also returned with my consciousness, causing me to groan from the intense pain shooting all throughout me.
起きないで横になっていてください
Did a good shot, though.
頭をだいぶ殴られたようですからね24時間は特に安静にして容体を見守りたいところです
ここは
私の診療所です入江と申しますよろしく
I remember that this young doctor was the one in the car headed the opposite way earlier.
誰かいませんか大石さんは
あ、呼んできましょう診療所の中は禁煙なんで表で吸ってもらってるんです
Dr. Ire left the room to go call Oshi. The scenery outside the window was tinted with gold. The pouring rain had stopped with the voices of the Higurashi heralding the cooling temperature. I felt that the tone of the Higurashi's voices was comforting. Eventually I could hear heavy footsteps coming closer, which I reckoned to be Oshi's. The fog that was enveloping my head slowly faded back to reality. What had happened since then? What had happened to my boy? What about the reinforcements from Tokyo? The door to the room flew open, allowing Dr. Ire and Oshi to enter.
じゃあ命に別状はないんでしょ
ないとお約束はできません頭に受けた傷は初見だけでは判断が危険なのです
わかりましたわかりましたちょいと彼と二人で話がしたいんですがよろしいですかね
ええどうぞ何かありましたらお呼びください
Oshi, after basically forcing Dr. Ire outside, shut the door.
いかがですかお具合は
慣れないことをしたんで全身がボロボロです
Feel like shit. Oshi brought over a folding chair that was leaning against a wall and sat down beside the bed.
犯人たちは逮捕されましたか
残念ながらとっくに県外へ逃げたか村人にかくまわれているかのどちらかでしょうねまあ逃がしゃしませんが
大臣の孫は
署で保護していますただ東京のあなたのご同僚から一切の聴取は取るなと釘を刺されたらしいですよしげちゃんが憤慨してましたっけ
The kidnapping was a confidential matter, so his custody was also probably being kept under wraps. How the kidnapping of the minister's grandson would be handled, how it would be covered up, treated like it never happened, would be handled by the boss. If this case ended without the nation going into an uproar about it, then Our job had been done. The possibility that the minister had negotiated with the perpetrators couldn't be ruled out, but something like that was no longer my concern. My role in this case was over.
ご迷惑をおかけします。公安ってやつはいやらしいところだって思ってるでしょ。
思いません思いません。お互い日の丸から給金もらって仕事してるだけですよ。
Oshi laughed boisterously. When we first met, I was somewhat prejudiced against Oshi, but now that feeling was gone completely.
今回の事件隠さないで大事にしてくれた方がこっちは都合がいいんですけどね。そうすれば黒幕の園崎本家に少しは迫れるんですが、まあ適当に迫ったところで圧力がかかるんでしょうがね。やれやれです。
大石さんは園崎本家に今後も戦いを。
まさか。いろいろと黒い噂こそ絶えませんがね。園崎家に恨みがあるわけじゃありませんので。
Really?
君子危うきに近寄らない方がいいんですよ。ね。
Would make sense, and we'll explain then, chapter 2, when he finally got an opening, he, decided to take down some of the Zaki family due to Mian murdering a bunch of people. Oshi laughed happily, and I couldn't help but laugh along.
あ、そうだそうだ。
So I can probably discard the theory of Oshi being behind the murders of the Oshiro-sama in order to pin it on the Sonozaki family, because he really doesn't have any personal stake in it. It would be nice if they were taken down, sure, but it's not really worth it to step on the long toes, as he said.
さっき県警から署に連絡があったそうです。あなたのご同僚が名古屋に到着したそうで、今車でこちらへ向かっているそうです。あなたは名誉の負傷ですから東京へ引き上げだそうですよ。そんなわけです。はあ、お疲れ様でした。あなたの沖宮での仕事は無事終了です。
I was being recalled to Tokyo. I inadvertently breathed a sigh of relief when I heard those words.
大石さんのご協力に深く感謝します。あなたに支払った協力金は無駄にはなりませんでしたね。
あら、冗談のつもりだったんだけどな。
Oshi took out his wallet, casually pulled out several large bills, and jammed them into the breast pocket of my shirt.
これは協力金の返済じゃないですよ。私からあなたへのお小遣いです。この辺は地酒がうまいんでね。東京へのお土産にこいつで買っていくといいでしょう。
Oshi flashed me a grin.
もしもあなたの傷が軽いようなら、東京へ帰る前にぜひ声をかけてくださいよ。林さんも佐藤さんもぜひあなたともう一度宅を囲みたいと言ってましたからね。
やれやれ。参ったな。
今度はこっちも小細工抜きです。純粋に楽しもうじゃないですか。
よく言いますよ。原則の警官があんなに濃い様ができるなんて世も末です。
私どもとね、対等以上に撃てるメンツにはなかなかお会いできないもんです。あなたが東京に帰るのが惜しいですよ。
When I heard the words going back to Tokyo from Oshi, I was reminded once again that I was relieved from my duties. Soon Yuki would be giving birth. It might still be possible to attend the delivery that I had one time given up on. When I found that the pain from my injuries became trivial, I wanted to hurry back to Tokyo and see Yuki at once.
少し傷が重いふりをして 沖宮にしばらく滞在しません？いいお店をいろいろ紹介しますよ。もちろんおごれなんて言いません。
申し訳ないですが、それはまたの機会にします。妻の出産日が近いんでね。早く帰りたいんです。
ありゃりゃ。それは知らなかった。それじゃあこんなとこにいちゃいけない。早く帰らないといけません。
For a while after that, Oshi asked all sorts of questions about my wife, teasing and bantering with me.
さて、具合はどうです？おきれいそうですか？
ええ、おかげさまで悪くないです。立って歩いても全然平気ですよ。
I stood up and shuffled around for a bit, which seemed to amuse Oshi.
いえいえ、ひなみ沢の病院では落ち着かないでしょうと思いまして。入江の先生は一晩泊まらせたいみたいなこと言ってますが、犯人もまだ捕まってませんし、一応ここはあなたにとっては敵地になりますからね。
この病院は安全ではない。
Don't want to get
どういう
murdered
ことで
in
すか?
your sleep, huh?
まあ、入江の先生も多少は社会的信用のあるお人です。ここにいる限りは何もないとは思いますが、赤坂さんの気分的にめいらないかという方が問題ですね。
I had relaxed a bit now that things had progressed this far, but it was exactly as though she had said. When I realized that this was enemy territory, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. But the only thing left for me to do was leaving, the chance that I would come to harm was logically fairly low. But that didn't mean I was completely safe.
そうですね。横になっているだけならホテルのベッドでも同じな気がします。
そうでしょう、そうでしょう。私もその方がいいと思います。
At that moment, I caught a glimpse of the clock over Oshi's shoulder. It was the evening. The hours when I could call Yuki at the hospital were almost over. I wanted to tell her as quickly as possible that I would soon be back at her side.
ちょっと雪江の病院に電話してきます。ロビーに公衆電話とかはありませんか?
No.
新婚さんはそういうの豆だな。確か会計の脇にあったと思います。
I thought that this hospital was a bit too grand for a village like this, but of course it was nothing compared to the general hospital Yuki was admitted to. Running inside a hospital wasn't the best of manners, but calling hours would soon end, so I dashed over in a hurry. There was nobody else in the lobby. It may have been the evening, but there was nobody at the reception desk. Well, this might actually be lucky for me. I wasn't planning to have a conversation to feel guilty about, but it would still be embarrassing to have someone listen to the conversation between me and Yuki. Taking a quick look around, I soon found the payphone. Digging around in my pockets, I grabbed a few coins. I was calling Tokyo for her, so I would burn through this amount fairly quickly. Picked up the receiver and inserted a coin and dialed the number for Yuki's hospital, which I had completely memorized at this point. Were. The number for Yuki's hospital had a lot of 8s and 9s, so dialing it inevitably took some time. Normally, it wouldn't be a big deal, but currently any time was precious. However, I felt that something was strange as I was dialing in the number. I don't know exactly how to put it, but it was as if the receiver was too quiet. The unique white noise from the telephone line wasn't there. Somehow I felt that I wasn't getting any feedback from the phone, and without feeling a response, I hung up the receiver to try again. The coin popped out from the return slot. I reinserted the coin and began dialing once again, but the receiver was still dead silent.
なんだこれ。断線でもしてるのかな?
But I was wasting time like this, the amount of time I had to spend talking with Yuki shrunk. Began to feel needlessly impatient.
すみません。
I felt the presence of someone on the other side of the glass, so I called out. There was an immediate response, and a man who seemed like a pharmacist came over.
はいはい。どうなさいましたか？
すみません。この電話の調子がおかしくて。ちょっと見てもらえますか？
The man came over and tried testing various things with the receiver pressed to his ear. Come to think of it, this was someone who worked at the hospital, not someone from the phone company. Just as I didn't know much about phones, neither would he.
あれ？なんだこれ？
The man held up the cord that connected the phone to the wall. It was completely severed.
だこれ。参ったな。
The hell?
これじゃ電話会社の人に直してもらわないとどうにもならないですね。
No, that isn't just that's not terrifying at all.
電話でしたら事務室のを使います？
I didn't want the people in the hospital office around while I was talking.
近所に公衆電話はありませんか？
ここを出て道なりに行くと商店街に出ます。そこのどこかの角のタバコ屋にあったような気がするな。行けば見つけられると思いますよ。
I was dressed in a hospital gown. I was wearing sandals on my feet. My head was wrapped in bandages. Just looking at me, you could tell I was a hospital patient. No matter how you looked at it, I was not dressed to be wandering around outside. No, but that's where the impertinence of youth came in. Using the chance to talk to Yuki for even a little longer, I headed outside in my current state. Followed the road to the shopping district. Should be able to find one soon enough. With only those 2 lines as my guide, I ran outside the gates of the hospital. With the village nestled in a valley, when the sun set, it got dark quickly. The sparse streetlights lit up enough to start attracting mobs. The Higurashi, knowing the time for the chorus was soon at a close, redoubled their fragile cries. Finding the payphone wasn't as easy as the person at the hospital had just suggested. Was it still up ahead? Did I miss it already? Was I just getting farther away? Just as I was about to be crushed by the wave of uncertainty towering over me, I found a shop in the corner with cigarettes running on a small sign. My joy spurred me onwards. Just as I had heard at the hospital, set next to the corridor of the cigarette shop was an antiquated payphone. I wasn't wearing a watch, so I didn't know what time it was. Probably didn't have much left, though, but it was enough. Just as long as I could tell Yuki my job was done and I would be coming home soon. Picking up the receiver, I slid a coin down the slot, but I felt that something was strange, just like at the hospital. Even after inserting the coin, the phone showed no response. I hung up the receiver and tried putting in the coin one more time, but there was absolutely no response. This phone was dead. Couldn't be. Thinking that, I felt along the cord that protruded from the back of the phone. Doing that, my hands found the end of a completely severed line. What the fuck? What is this? Having now had the same thing happen twice, my befoulment was accompanied by a sense of unease. It seemed that the cord had been severed cleanly by a sharp blade of some sort. I may be mistaken, but it didn't look like much time had passed since it was cut.
すみません。すみません。
Opening up the booth window of the tobacco shop, I looked for someone in the dimly lit interior. Eventually, there was the sound of somebody plodding down some stairs, and an old lady appeared. The old lady's plodding and lethargic steps for some reason only served to make me more frantic.
タバコですかいね。小さまでねんとわ。
タバコを買いたいわけじゃないんです。この電話が。
Realizing that saying the phone was broken and asking them to take a look at it was going to get me nowhere, I swallowed back my words.
この電話が壊れてるみたいなんで、別の公衆電話があるところを教えてもらいたいのですが。
The old lady moved her jaw up and down slowly as if chewing on the meaning of my words. It seemed that she wouldn't understand until she had digested things thoroughly.
電話壊れてますかいね。そんな難儀だわ。
It's a dilly of...
他の公衆電話を当たってください。
The old lady directed me to another payphone that seemed quite a ways away. Her way of telling me was so long-winded that I literally started to get impatient. At that moment, I spotted a clock in the dim interior of the store. The minute hand was just about to point straight up. Even if there was a phone right here that I could use, I would only be able to tell Yuki goodnight with the time I had left. Top of that, my destination was a remote payphone, which I didn't know the exact distance to. If I was of a normal state of mind, deciding to give up the phone today would have been the natural thought process. But at that moment, I had become somewhat stubborn for some reason. Unable to use the phone in the hospital and coming out here and still being able to use one. There was no mistaking that I had become quite insistent on using a phone.
どうもありがとうございます。その電話ボックス探してみます。
Refusing her offer to draw me a map, I left the tobacco shop. According to the old lady, even though the phone booth was quite far away, it would be easy to find. If I just followed this road straight down, I'd eventually find it. Sandals flapping as I ran, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I'll admit that I was quite steadfast about calling Yuki. There were days when I was tired or busy when I wouldn't call her. Even today, my entire body was covered with injuries and I was dead tired. On top of that, there wasn't much time left. It wouldn't be strange at all if today was one of those days I didn't call her. But having twice been foiled trying to call her, had I become hot-headed about it? Was I like a dog who was being told to stay with a piece of food dangled in my face?
何やってんだろうな。
Even so, I somehow couldn't quell the uneasy feelings sitting in the pit of my stomach. It was like that with the hospital phone, and the same with the one at the tobacco shop. Both cords were definitely not severed from being fried by long years of use. The clean cuts indicated that someone had taken something sharp and deliberately cut them. But who, and for what reason? The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt, so I tried to push the thought aside. How much had I won so far? The scenery around me was no longer that of a shopping district with residential buildings scattered about the lonely road. The surroundings had already grown dark. I was brained way out too far for a quick phone call, and it was quite obvious I was far removed from the hospital. I recalled the clock I saw at the tobacco shop. It might almost be time. I had won for quite a bit, so my breathing had grown quite ragged. If I just wanted to hear Yuki's voice, I should have thrown away my reservations and borrowed the phone in the office. I regretted it a little. Well then, was it about time to give up? Just when I thought that, I saw the light in front of me. I had finally found it. It was a phone booth. It seemed that the light in the phone booth had recently been changed as it shone with a vivid... Wait, is this the same fucking phone booth like Kechi died in chapter 1? Has to be, because this is the exact same background we saw. Also, same place where Tomoki died as well. Shone with a vivid white light. Although in the gloom of Himizawa was nothing more than a gathering spot for moths. But in any case, I had finally found it. As my hand touched the door of the phone booth, I realized I was breathing and sweating heavily. I don't know what time it was right now, but even if it was just for a moment, I might be able to get in touch with Yuki. Since I had spent all this effort getting here, turning back without even giving it a try was out of the question. Before I picked up the receiver, another wave of uneasiness washed over me. I was worried that this phone cord might be severed as well. How was the cord in this phone booth? Squatting down, I followed the bundle of cables as they ran along the corner to the ceiling. At a glance, nothing was out of the ordinary. I ran my finger as far as I could along the line to check it out. The only thing they found was a thick layer of dust. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wonder if it was popular in Himizawa to cut the cords of payphones as some sort of tasteless prank. It might be prudent to talk to Oshii-san about this later. Even if it was nothing more than a prank, it was still vandalism of public property. In any case, this one was fine, this time. Pulling out a coin from my pocket with one hand, I picked up the receiver with the other. But this time, before the receiver even reached my ear, I felt something was off. The receiver was white. It was more than a slightly unpleasant feeling. It felt almost sickening. To verify the source of my displeasure, I peered at the receiver in my hand with a measure of reluctance.
なんだよこれ。
The coiled cord that connected the receiver to the rest of the phone had been ripped apart, the tip of the cable swaying in the air. It was all I could do to restrain myself as a raw, unpleasant feeling worked its way up the small of my back. It was a type of dread. That moment I heard the crunch of somebody stepping on gravel. The light was reflecting off the glass walls of the booth, leaving me unable to see outside into the darkness. I steeled myself and stepped out of the phone booth. The inside of the booth was lit with that strong light, which might have made it warmer in there. Just stepping outside, I could feel a chill wash over me, and there was the silhouette of a person. A small silhouette. Oh no, Rika. The long hair, that silhouette was blown about by the cool breeze.
怪我人が病院を抜け出してはいけないのですよ。
Somewhere in my head, I knew who this girl was. I didn't have any basis for it, but I knew that she was that girl.
ねえ、赤坂。
She, Rika Furude, said that almost like it was a warning.
君が電話のコードを。
Her expression remained unchanged, and my question was left unanswered. In other words, no response. Regardless, I thought that she had affirmed my suspicions.
どうしてこんなことをするんだ。どうして。
The last word had a tinge of anger behind it. I frantically tried to smooth things out, but she didn't seem very afraid.
もうどうにもならないことです。
What? I interpreted her words as meaning that I wasn't going to be in time for calling hours at the hospital. But thinking about it, that would have been a strange thing to say. Why would she know something like that? Could take what she said to have any other meaning. She just stood there like a mannequin, not even moving an inch. Almost to the point that if the wind wasn't occasionally rustling for her long hair, there would be the illusion that time had stopped.
赤坂が私を気味悪く思っているのがよくわかる。
Yeah, a bit.
ああ、いや、そんなことないよ。
My denial came out almost like a bad piece composed for a poetry slam, but her words were right on the mark. I had always felt something ominous and uncanny about her, ever since her strange threats at the shrine. Oh, fuck. She had noticed that my expression was contrary to my words, seemingly laughing at the gap between them.
赤坂の怖がり。
怖がってなんかいないよ。
Being laughed at by the small child didn't sit well with me, so I said that.
もう電話を探しても手遅れの時間です。
そうだな。
She didn't even have to say it. I was absolutely too late. I might have already missed calling hours even by the time I reached this phone booth. I was too late. I had no option but to give up for today. Once I decided that, my unhealthy obsession with phones suddenly faded. Even I thought that it was a little strange that I was that obsessed. That strange obsession now gone, I began to laugh at how hopeless I was. I mean, just look at what I was wearing. It wasn't normal. A hospital gown and sandals. My head wrapped in bandages and my body completely soaked in sweat. It was a wonder that the old lady at the tobacco shop wasn't surprised to see me. If wanting to hear Yuki's voice was my motive, I had trapseed around the town this entire evening. I didn't know whether to call it the follies of youth or simply plain embarrassing. In any case, it was all I could do but to laugh at myself.
もうこれで今夜赤坂がすることは何もないです。
そうだな。もう何もないよ。 おとなしく病院へ引き上げるさ。
それがいいのですよ。病院への道はわかりますですか？
わかるつもりだよ。
She waved her little hand as I began to head back the way it came. She began to follow alongside of me. Looking at her face, I could see that she wore a mischievous smile, as if she was extremely interested in whether or not I would get lost.
リカちゃんの家もこっちの方向なのかい？
なのですよ。
こんな時間に一人で表を歩いてると、ご両親に怒られたりしないかい？
別に怒られませんです。今日はご両親は忙しい日なので、僕のことなど忘れていますですよ。
それでも帰った方がいい。きっと怒るよ。
それでも赤坂とおしゃべりする方が面白いのでいいのです。
She said that with a face free from worry as she looked up at me once more and smiled. When she showed me that smile, the eerie feeling surrounding her faded. But even then, she was still as mysterious to me as ever. We arrived at the corner I had turned at earlier, but it was much darker than before, and with the point of view change on the return trip, I wasn't very confident that this actually was the corner I turned at. There's no mistake, it had to be this corner. As I began to move my feet again, the girl grabbed onto my clothes.
赤坂は病院へ戻るのではないのですか？
もちろん戻るつもりだよ。道間違えた？
A short moment of silence. Eventually, still holding onto my clothes, she began to walk. It was the beginning of the walk to the hospital this mysterious girl would take me on. Oh boy. Oh boy. Something that I noticed could be looking too much into it was that
電話のコードを切って回ってたのリカちゃんだろ？
actually, forget that. Let me just go with this.
ダメだよ。もうしちゃ。
僕には何のことかよくわかりませんのですよ。
本当にかい？
She tried to play dumb, but was winning all over her face.
ニパー。
It was obvious she was trying to laugh it off, but that adorable smile of hers just made me want to forgive her. I'm going to be a horrible father, aren't I? The momentary lapse in tension was erased by her next words.
孫、無事に見つかってよかったです。
Unable to respond right away, I sunk into silence. I had already learned this from Sato-san's info, didn't I? This girl, no, this entire village knew everything since the moment I set foot in it. I considered playing dumb. In the end, I chose not to. Of everything being known already, there's no point in me feigning ignorance.
なんとかね。
それはよかったです。これで東京に帰れますですよ。
ありがとう。
赤坂の怪我はひどいのですか？
さあ、ひどいのかどうか、医者の診察を聞いてないからわからないな。
Huh? Come to think of it, I vaguely remembered being told to lie down and take it easy for at least 24 hours. Does that mean bed rest?
怪我人は病院を抜け出してはいけないのですよ。
電話のコードだって切っちゃいけないんだぞ。
みー。僕には何のことやらわからないのです。
じゃあこっちだって何のことかわからないや。
As we played dumb with each other, we both laughed at the same time. If somebody saw us laughing at each other like this, it would probably bring a smile to their lips.
赤坂が生きてこの村を出られる確率は決して高くありませんでした。
Huh?
僕は赤坂に死んでほしくはないので、生きて村を出ることができて嬉しいです。
リカちゃん、最初っから私の正体は知ってたんだろ？
She said nothing, but gave a firm nod.
なら分かっていると思うけど、私たちはこの村のどちらかというと、なのに君はいろいろと忠告してくれたね。
That's right. She said it at that time. She wouldn't warn somebody that she was okay with dying. She definitely said something like that.
なら私は君に感謝するべきなのかもしれないね。
感謝した方がいいのですよ。僕は命の恩人なのです。
Saying that, she puffed up her chest proudly. She said it a joking way, but the meaning behind those words was quite heavy. That was because whether I lived or died was a decision that might have been made in a place unbeknownst to me. She said those words with such an adorable smile that it took a few moments of silence for their weight to settle in. I'd been to this place before. The Guardian's office was there. There was the stone steps leading up to the Furude shrine. When I passed by before, I was so focused on finding a phone booth I hadn't realized where I was.
確かこの神社がリカちゃんの家だったよね。
まあ、そんなものです。
Looking up at the shrine grounds, it was brightly lit and energetic voices could be heard. What was going on?
今日はお祭りの日なのですよ。
Oh.
お祭り？
ひなみ沢村の唯一で一番のお祭り。綿流しのお祭りです。
Today is a Sunday. Oh my god, I forgot. Oh, that one mention at the beginning of the fucking chapter.
綿流し？
祭りなんて名ばかりのつまらないものですよ。見ますですか？
She asked bluntly. But seeing that I looked interested, she climbed up a couple of steps and motioned for me to come. I was only going to go back and sleep anyways. If I had nothing else to do, it might not be a bad idea to go with her on a little detour. In the hostile territory that was this village, I didn't know what would happen if I ventured down a side road without Oshi. Even though I thought of the village like that, when I was with this girl, I forgot all about it. In any case, even without anything to back it up, I felt that as long as with her, none of the ill will from the village would befall me. That's why even though I knew my cover was blown, I strangely had no qualms about setting foot into the heart of the Onikafuchi Guardians' territory. Climbing up to the grounds of the shrine, I could see there were about 3 pavilions set up with meeting tables and folding chairs. The old folks from the village, no, the executives of the Guardians, were already quite drunk and were sharing in the round of drinks. I could only see it as people from the village council drinking while enjoying the evening air. At the very least, it was certainly quite different than any festival I'd ever seen.
ね。つまんないお祭りでしょ。
これは確かにお祭りには見えないね。
大昔からずっと続いてきたお祭りですが、見ての通り、すっかり寂れてしまったのですよ。
As if to chide the old folks, she said that while looking at them with an exasperated expression. You really couldn't call this a festival anymore. It was just a bunch of neighbors getting together to drink under the guise of a festival.
これじゃ祀られる神様も気の毒だな。
こんなみっともないお祭りも5、6年もすると村中が総出でやってきて、ちゃんと儀式も真面目にやる立派なお祭りになるのですよ。
What she said was not so much wishful thinking as it was a telling of a future that had already been determined. She wasn't even predicting it. It was almost like she was simply reporting the results. That's how it sounded. Even though it was based with speculation, the way she said it wouldn't let me interject. It was the same way she talked when she changed. While I was struggled to find the words to reply to her, she wandered over to the other side of the grounds, not minding me at all. Not in a state where I could afford to be left behind, I hurriedly followed after her. Passing through a corpse of pine trees, a strong cool breeze ruffled my hair. There, from that one evening, was the splendid observation platform the girl had shown me. As it had grown completely dark, the modest lights splintered across the nightscape were providing a different type of scenery.
こうして眺めると、この村ものどかそうに見えますのです。
She said that with an indifferent look on her face.
君は先日、この村は絶対にダムに沈むことはないと、そう断言したね。
She didn't reply, seemingly relished in the feeling of the wind blowing through her hair.
あれは、あの時点でもう、大臣が要求に応じていたという意味だったんだね。
She spun around, her gaze meeting mine, but she said nothing. She spoke nothing that would neither confirm nor deny what I just said.
多分、今回の事件は闇から闇へ葬られる。本庁上層部は多分大臣のスキャンダルが公になってトラブルになることを望まないと思う。
さもないと、孫を殺すぞと脅したに違いないのです。
で、大臣との交渉が成功し、孫は解放された。
孫を助けたのは赤坂ですよ。
どうだろう。発端となったあの財布の発見、あれ自体がすでに出来すぎだったように思う。
Ever since the moment that wallet was discovered, I felt something was odd. Oh, she said it as well, that the Sonozaki family had given the order to release the hostage, meaning that our little manhunt was a farce to begin with. Come to think of it, I was punched, kicked, and had a gun pointed at me. It felt like they put up quite a fight, but that might have been all part of a good performance. Once the negotiations were successful, they couldn't just say, "Here you go," and return the minister's grandson right to his doorstep. They knew that public safety had realized that this was a kidnapping case and were moving in on it. That's why, due to the actions of public safety, the grandson was able to be rescued safely. So the minister didn't give in to any unreasonable demands. That type of performance was necessary.
僕には難しいことはよくわかりません。
Of course you don't.
同感だな。私にだって難しいことはよくわからない。だが、一つ確実なことがある。君が言った通りってことさ。この村はダム湖になんか沈まない。ダム計画なんてそのうちなくなってしまうってことさ。
That wasn't something an officer of the law should be saying, but I naturally let those words slip from my mouth. This village may have stirred up all sorts of trouble, but that was because they were protecting their homes. Someone just decided by themselves that I had to leave the house I was used to living in. I would resent them as well. On top of that, it wasn't a place like mine where I just happened to be entering it, but a place that their families had lived for generations. It might be ignorant to call their desperate resistance an overreaction. I might not really be qualified to criticize politics or bureaucracy, but deliberately building a dam on land that was loved by its residents wasn't something I could get behind.
でも、よかったじゃないか。
どうしてですか？
少なくともこれで、この村に平和が戻るよ。
Even though the minister promised to use his considerable influence to cancel the project, it would probably take more than a few months before it would be completely scrapped. At the very least, it would probably take 1 or 2 years. For the villagers to officially hear that their village wasn't going to be submerged at the bottom of the dam was still a ways away. But it was no mistake that the promise of peace returning to the village was there. It turned out from the beginning to end that it had already all been decided. Just as the girl had said, it was decided. There wasn't really a need for me to come here in the first place. There's absolutely no need for me to have come here and aggravate an unpleasant situation. If I had never come here, then the grandson's release might have been done in a more amicable manner.
平和がこの村に
When I nodded, she laughed as if to admonish me, but her face remained indifferent, expressionless. And then her eyes narrowed slightly as she snickered.
これから毎年血生臭いことが起きるのに
リカちゃん、何の話だい？
As the wind blew her hair about, the girl, as if taking pleasure in that I was the only one who didn't know, continued to snicker as she looked at my face for a while.
私ね
Shit,
あ
this
と何
music.
年かすると殺されるの
Wait, huh? Huh? Backwood by the moon, it was hard to tell if her expression that had been cast in shadow was smiling, amused, or resigned.
リカちゃんがどうして？
とても不愉快なことだけどそれも多分決まってることなの
決まっているって誰がそんなことを決めるんだい？
The hell?
それを私も知りたいの
Turning back to face me, she showed me a resolute expression for the first time. And after staring into my eyes for a moment, she turned back to gaze at the scenery before she spoke her next words.
ここは人の命を何とも思わない連中でいっぱいですこれを伝えても何も変わらないかもしれないけどでも死という月を映す水面をかき消すためなら小石を投じることもあるかもしれない
I had no idea what she was trying to say. It's just, I had to listen to every word with my body and soul, or at least that's what I thought.
来年の今日そう昭和54年の6月の今日ダム現場の監督が殺されます
For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what she was talking about. By the foreman, did she mean that gruff old man I played mahjong with?
殺されるってどうして？
She didn't answer, but she had the same expression on her face as she did when she declared that the damn project would go away. That wasn't the face of somebody making a forecast or a prediction. It was something that was already decided. No, it was as if she was already reporting the results. That sort of expression.
恐ろしい殺され方をした後体中をバラバラに引き裂かれて捨てられてしまいます
バラバラ殺人。
その翌年の昭和55年の6月の今
No
日
fucking way.
聡子の両親が突き落とされて死にます
What the fuck? Sadako? It was the first time I heard that name, but I didn't have the courage to interrupt the girl's story.
あるいは事故と言うべきかもしれない不幸な事故
The girl smiled faintly, but she wasn't exactly encouraging me to smile along with the lifeless look in her eyes.
そしてさらにその翌年の昭和56年の6月の今日私の両親が殺されますそしてさらに翌年の昭和57年の6月の今日聡子の意地悪おばが頭を割られて死にます
What the fuck?
そしてさらに翌年の昭和58年の6月の今
What happens in 83?
日あるいはその数日後か 私が殺されます。
What the fuck are you? They were all planned ahead. By what? By who? If all the murders were already planned in advance, what the fuck?
すべての死が予定調和なら、最後の死もまた予定のうちなのでしょうか。でもならばこれは一体誰の予定なの？
Whose plan? This village is full of murderers and people who have no regard for human life. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths up to 1982 would be the work of somebody in the village. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths that would occur were at the discretion of those who control the village. But that didn't explain what would happen in 1983. There was no way that the last death would fit in with anybody's plans. They had no regard for human life. They would use every means at their disposal to meet their goals. But their goals were at odds with the last death. That's why the last death was unrelated to them. But that last death would definitely, most likely, probably, without question, happen. Probably, definitely, I dare say. The last death would be a merciful one. A handkerchief or something being placed over their mouth, making them lose consciousness, never to wake up again. Exactly whose plan was that?
私は幸せに生きたい。望みはそれだけ。大好きな友人たちに囲まれて楽しく日々を過ごしたい。
Oh my god, the fucking, oh my god, all those fucking tips about like, that all commented on like, predictability of we already know what's going to happen. Was that from Rika? Oh my god, that would make so much sense if we already know the choices that would happen.
それだけなの。それ以上の何も望んでいないの。
リカちゃん。
死にたくない。
The girl, stoic as ever, let those last words slip in the end. What the fuck? What the fuck? This is so weird. Cause like, first of all, this is a huge revelation about all the murders being preordained back in 1978. But also in a weird meta sense as well. Because, you know, in a meta, this is chapter 4. We know all the murders in very good detail. We know they're going to happen. And it's so weird, both from like a meta sense and from an in-story sense as well, that it's all preordained. That no matter what, someone will die in 1983. Be it Rika, be it Beyond, be it Rena, be it Kechi, someone will always die in 1983. Don't... But it's most likely Rika who dies. But somebody dies in 1983. You know what? This also makes sense with what we've gone through as well for the last 3 chapters at least. That no matter what we do, it's always the same result. Someone always dies. There's always a murder. Tomoki's always dead. No matter what we do, we may change little things here and there, word new information, but the end result is always the same. Someone always dies in the end, and there's nothing we can do about it. I guess that's what those tips were commenting on as well, is that we already know what's going to happen. After we finish chapter 1, chapter 2, we're going to be expecting it. We know it. It becomes a bit boring. The only thing that changes is the sequence of events or new inclusions to each chapter. It's so... God damn, is this so fascinating. So goddamn fascinating. Eventually, we were discovered by some drunks. The girl, as well as I, were dragged back to the festivities. Everybody was completely drunk, so even when they saw my head completely wrapped in bandages, they wouldn't let me leave. Well, certainly if I was in good enough condition to slip out of the hospital, it must not be that serious. The girl was mingling with everybody, being pampered like a kitten. Her expression was adorable, nothing like the one from just before, predicting her own death and whispering that she didn't want to die. Having said that, having a silly and lively conversation like this, it was hard to believe that these people were the core of the extremist resistance group. Even if it was a shell of its former self, it was a festival where people in the village gathered, so the 20-some-odd folk here should have included some of the village executives and other important members. Among those, there was no doubt that there were members that were at the Sonozaki family council in attendance, meaning even if we never met face-to-face before, there were people who knew my identity. In a small village like this, they knew the faces of all the villagers that lived here. That's why, without even saying anything, it soon became obvious that I was an outsider. But they actually seemed interested by that, asking me all sorts of questions about Tokyo, drinking while musing on the faint relationship the city had with the villagers, and empathizing with the rather meager environment. The confidential talks with the minister were finished. His grandson was in police custody. Everything was over. I might not have to put in another perilous situation. To me, they were only my adversaries because of my job. Outside of that, there was no reason I couldn't be friendly with them. The next time I visited this village, it would return to being a tranquil and beautiful place. If that happened, I might be able to take a relaxed walk around the village with her again. My cup was once again filled to the brim with beer. By the time I was able to get away, it was in the middle of the night. The girl had at some point disappeared. It seems that her parents had told her to go home and sleep when she let out a large yawn. The old folks, who had absolutely no remorse for making an injured person to hang out with them, told me as much as they laughed. I was just there drinking, so I had thought to help a bit with cleanup. However, my help was refused on the grounds that I was a guest. On top of that, they had a car prepared to take me back to the hospital. Losing the battle against my sleepiness inside the car, I was sound asleep until we reached the parking lot of the hospital. That's such an... Go back to the conversation with Rika. What an interesting final line. Whose plan will it be? Does that mean that each murder in each chapter, in 1983 at least, was the plan of a different faction? I think that's what it might be telling us. But what's the true answer? Actually, that's a great thing. Which is the true ending to Higurashi? Obviously, by the time we get to chapter 8, we'll find out the true ending. But out of these 3 chapters, which one is the definitive ending to Himizawa, to Kechi? Is it the one where he kills Rena and Mion and he dies in a phone booth? Is it the one where Mion goes on a killing spree, killing Rena and... No, not Rena. Sadako and Rika and her own sister, and Kechi being in the hospital? Or is it chapter 3 where pretty much everybody dies and Kechi goes insane? Which ending is the true one? Which one is the true timeline of 1983? We don't know. It could be all 3. Or it could be... honestly, yeah, it could be all three. We never go past 1983 except for chapter 3, but that's its own timeline. We don't know the definitive thing. Well, with chapter 4 here, this is 1978. We know this to be most likely true, right? Yeah, probably. But such an interesting question. What is the true ending of Higurashi? I guess we'll find out in chapter 8 when we get to it in part 1000. Losing the battle against my sleepiness inside the car, I was sound asleep until we reached the parking lot of the hospital. The front door of the hospital was naturally locked at this hour. I wandered around bewilderedly searching for a back entrance until somebody on night duty found out and let me inside.
こんな時間までどちらへ？入江先生も心配してましたよ。
ご迷惑をおかけしました。神社でお祭りの人たちに引き止められまして。
ああ、そういえば今日は神社で町会の人たちが集まって飲むとか言ってたな。それはご愁傷様でした。傷は大丈夫ですか？
ちょっとズキズキしますね。多分アルコールのせいだと思います。
そうだ。お連れの刑事さんが連絡が欲しいと言ってましたよ。
いけない。大石さんを待たせてたんだった。
I glanced at the clock. No matter how you looked at it, it was way too late to call him now. I'll apologize to him tomorrow over the phone. I returned back to my hospital room and slipped into the bed that was still unmade from the time I went outside. Oh, that's no good. I had to turn off the lights. By my weariness, I cut the cord powering my body, lulling me into a deep sleep. It's all predetermined. It's every single murder's predetermined. Wow, that's the end of that chapter. Wow. Mother's Ivory. What the hell does that mean? But yeah, this gave me a lot to chew on, especially that Rika thing that every murder will always happen. No matter what, it's preordained. By whose plan? We don't know. Who's deciding to kill these particular people? Without really any rhyme or reason. Who knows? But Rika knows for sure that they all die and that she will inevitably die in 1983. Be it on the day of Wanakagashi or a few days after that. Which is very interesting. So, what the fuck? It's so, if Rika's the one that's supposed to die in 1983 though, why is Tomoki and Takano murdered? Why are they killed instead of Rika? Either on the day of Wanakagashi or couple days after. Rika's never been murdered on the day of Wanakagashi, we know that for sure. So what changes? What changes this, I'll call it like a prophecy of the Oshiro-sama murders? What change? This is such an interesting development. And really, this chapter has been building up to it, and to be perfectly honest, it kind of has been building out throughout the game ever since the ending of chapter 1. Since, same thing, people die still in chapter 2 and chapter 3. We kind of are like we know it's kind of preordained that someone will get murdered in 1983. Just whose plan is it and how is the question. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this type of content, hit that subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. Want to tell me something, put it down in the comments below. Want to check out the Discord server I hang out in, or my Twitter, check the description below. And yeah, this has been Voidlego. I'll see you guys next time. See ya!